everybody, to another awesome episode of Rock Talk with the DocRocker. I am Jeff Bonomo, and I'm joined with the DocRocker himself, Danton Arlotto. Once again, how are you doing today?
I am well, Jeff. How about yourself?
I'm feeling good today. I'm very happy today because we have something that we have never done before on the show. We're going to do our first impressions of a new song by the prog rock gurus, the Liquid Tension Experiment. Something that we've never done on the show before is really give a first reaction to their new song, which is called The Passage of Time. It just was put on YouTube today, maybe?
Today, I think today or yesterday. Yeah. And I have not listened to it yet. I've been holding out. So I'm excited. I'm very pumped to really share and give it an honest first impression. And I'm excited. Hopefully this can kind of spin off into a whole new segment for the show where we do a lot of these sort of react videos, whether it's new songs that come out as they come out, or whether we find things in our travels of, oh, here's something that neither of us heard, or, maybe something one of us hasn't heard for a really long time. And we can do kind of the same idea. So I have it queued up. I can do a little screen share and share the sound from my computer. Courtesy of Zoom's wonderful features. So we'll give it a listen and we'll talk about it. But before we do that, Jeff, I figured we should share with some of the followers on the group, people watching the show who might not know what this Liquid Tension Experiment stuff is all about. So.
Well, what is it about, really? Who's in this band? I know it's a bunch of prog rock guys.
Yeah. Well, it's basically, I don't know much about them, but it's basically the instrumentalists from Dream Theater. In some ways, shapes, and forms. I know, at least to start, well, actually, no, maybe for all of them now, it's, Mike Portnoy, the drummer, Jordan Rudess on keys. And do they have John Petrucci on guitar for this?
John Petrucci.
So the only difference is the bass player, right? They don't have John Myung. They have somebody else, I think.
Tony Levin from King Crimson. Yes, Peter Gabriel fame. That guy's been around forever.
Okay.
He plays the Chapman stick, the bass guitar, upright bass. He's just a crazy guy.
That's awesome.
A really interesting instrument. I'm sure you know what it is, but if
I can't play one, but I know what it is.
I can't play one either, but it's neat. It looks like this, this huge refrigerator door kind of thing that you play like this.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's really cool. I've always wanted one.
This Tony dude is is the master of the Chapman stick, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I know of his work. He did, I think, one album with Yes. I think he played on Union, if the internet is correct. Did a lot of stuff with King Crimson. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and of
course, well diversified prog rock specialist.
Yeah,
to say the least.
They've done a lot of stuff, So what I'm excited about is this is like a reunion between Mike Portnoy, who is not the drummer from Dream Theater anymore, and John Petrucci and Jordan Rudess, who are still in Dream Theater. So this is kind of neat. And
yeah, so this is super exciting because I'm a huge Portnoy fan and I love Dream Theater in all their ways, shapes, and forms, even their newer stuff, because, Mike Mangini is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So he definitely fills the role really well, but I definitely don't like some of their newer albums as much. Like Portnoy was a big reason why I like Dream Theater so much and why a lot of Dream Theater fans like the band so much, because he was a real big influence on a lot of the writing when they were really in their kind of, after Images and Words, and they kind of escalated to this superstar status in the 90s and 2000s. A big, not to say that the other members of the band aren't.
Right, but he's the face of Dream Theater. He was the most outspoken one out of all of them.
Yes,
when there was
he was.
That was just weird because he's a drummer. Usually the drummers are the guys that sit back, but
yeah, he was always the guy right up front, and you can see it.
Yeah. He's the guy who wanted to do all the interviews. Most of the time, when the rock press wanted to talk to somebody, it was usually Mike Portnoy. It usually wasn't Petrucci or James LaBrie or any other member of the band. It usually was Portnoy. He's a very outgoing man. He's a very and
you can tell his personality from how he conducts himself in interviews, and even on stage. I got to see him perform when he was still with Dream Theater. Right when the last album that came out that he was on there with, Black Clouds and Silver Linings, came out the year I graduated, 2009. And And I remember I took my girlfriend to see them at the Tower, and I got to see him perform, which was I was so glad I went because that was unbeknownst to me the last opportunity I would have had to see him play with them. So yeah, but going back to Liquid Tension Experiment, and speaking of James Labrie, the interesting thing about it is it's all instrumental. You know, they don't have any vocals at all, so James is not part of the project at all. And I know a lot of Dream Theater fans that aren't a big fan of him tend to really like the Liquid Tension Experiment stuff because it's like, oh, it's basically Dream Theater without the singing. So
right, yeah, and it also goes back to the first album I believe was released in 1997. So they only have 3 albums, you know, and the first 2 I believe are with all 4 guys. The third one is called the Liquid Trio Experiment, and I believe it's Portnoy, Rudess, and I don't think Petrucci's on. I think it's without Petrucci. I think it's Tony Levin, Portnoy, and Jordan Rudess. I think is on the third one. I think. Don't quote me on that. I could be completely wrong. But I know the third one, which I've never actually heard.
I'd never heard of it. I never knew that they did a trio thing.
Yeah, the Liquid Trio Experiment is called. So it's slightly different.
Is that on Spotify? Can you find that? Is that?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
I just kind of
because I really like the first 2 albums. I just it's one of those things where like I heard of it like right when it came out, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I should check it out. And I never did until like a year ago, and I listened to the first 2 albums for the first time, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But
it's good stuff, and honestly, I haven't listened to the Liquid Tension Experiment in a long time. It came out around a time where there was a lot of stuff like that. And the guys from Dream Theater were in like a half a dozen bands, half a dozen side projects, you know, and this was just one of them. And it kind of fell by the wayside. But for me, with instrumental music, it's something that I like to listen to when I'm doing other stuff. It's great background music. So, and I do have to mention the Rock Talk with DocRocker group. We've already had people posting about this song. We posted it earlier today, and Danton posted it and almost kind of like teasing me not to click the little button to go to YouTube. But I didn't watch it yet. So I wanted to be completely fresh. But I mean, the people that have been posted in the responses to it says it's fabulous.
I'm not surprised. I have very high expectations. I'm excited.
Okay. Well, if you don't have anything else to talk about with the Liquid Tension Experiment, we could get right into the video right now if you'd like.
Yeah, well, just real quick, I just looked it up. The Liquid Trio Experiment album is on Spotify, and that's my homework I'm assigning myself because I never heard it, and I'm excited to see what that's all about. I always like trio stuff. You know, I'm a big Rick Wakeman fan, and he has a lot of solo out. He's one of the keyboard players from Yes for a time, and he branched off and did a whole bunch. He's really well known now for his solo stuff, and he has a lot of albums that are just keyboards, bass, and drums. And I always really liked that sound. And I mean, I'm a big guitar enthusiast too, and as much of a metalhead as anyone else. But it's something refreshing about just hearing keys and bass is really, really interesting
to see what people can do when they have so little. Is how much they can do with so little. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, look at Rush.
Yeah, they were a trio through and through, right?
Yeah, that they never had another member,
fourth member. So
and the great thing about the impressive thing about Rush, well, I mean, they are pretty impressive, but really impressive thing is Geddy Lee, you know, when they brought keyboards in the 80s, he played them and played bass, and he played them on foot pedals, and he was just it was crazy. If you ever watch a live video of him doing that stuff, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's the epitome of less is more. You know, you don't need a band that has like 10 different members, but those bands are fantastic too. I mean, when we did our new metal episode way back when we first started this, you know, I made it clear that I'm a big Slipknot fan, and they have 9 members. So you know, to each his own. Everyone's got their own things they like and don't like. So let's get into this. So I'm gonna do a share. I'll pull it up. I have the link pulled up on my browser, so that should show. Oh, you know what? Wait, before I do that, there's a little thing where I could share my computer sound, so that way you could hear it at the same time as me, and it'll come through nice and clear. All right. So yeah, so I already gave it a thumbs up because I know I'm gonna like it. So I'm logged in. We won't have to worry about advertisements or any of that kind of nonsense. So we're just gonna jump right in and do this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right.
All right. Very nice.
Oh, I am absolutely impressed.
Killer.
Yeah. That's going to be stuck in my head all night. I can tell already. I'm going to probably listen to it a dozen more times too, to try and wrap my head around everything I just heard. So.
Oh yeah, it's going to get another play for me.
Oh yeah, several. That's one of those I could tell right out the gate that I'm gonna like just hit that on repeat and just jam to it while I'm like, cleaning the house or something. Um, yeah, and I feel like that was like a perfect, like that is like a when someone asks what's Liquid Tension Experiment, what's Dream Theater, just listen to that one song because that's the perfect embodiment of everything that they do. It hits it's every dimension of the way that they write, the way that all four of those musicians play, especially like with just how that riff closed at the very end. Like here's this riff, but then Portnoy is going to give it like 5 or 6 different grooves underneath. He's going to double time it, half time it, throw in 2s against 3s or 3s against 2s or whatever way you want to think about it. There's going to be meter changes.
I noticed he was doing that a lot, but he also wasn't showing off.
No, not really. He never really does. He's not the kind of drummer that just like here's like excessive fills and shredding. I mean, he could play and he does a lot of virtuosic stuff, but
I was actually thinking he was going to do more of that. He now for him keeping it like simple for him, that's kind of what it felt like, simple for him. That's not simple for me.
That was him exercising self-control. I definitely I feel like it wasn't even just him. I think it was the same for all 4 of the musicians too. Like even in like some of Petrucci's solos, like just with his guitar playing alone, here's like he could do like the crazy tremming stuff, he could do all the sweeping stuff, but here's a clip of him just doing like this real simple, nice melodic playing too. It was nothing but really, really tasteful stuff. And when they were at the height of their virtuosity, in that particular song, there's no really, there's no like, oh, he's just hitting 1,000 notes because he can and he's just showing up. I never really got, and I really rarely get that feeling from them ever. Funny enough, I think the biggest offender of that is Jordan Rudess. Sometimes, he tends to kind of like, indulge a bit with some of the goofy sounds and wails and all the little siren-y kind of stuff, but it's part of the nature of what playing prog keys is, and he's really good at it, and he deserves to show off because he's the best piano player ever. But yeah, even in this, I feel like he exercised a lot of restraint in his playing, even when he soloed too. And as far as that, here's like the nice big octave piano melodies that are really iconic. Here's the nice big string synth thing for that main chorus hook. Here's him like just going totally wacky over the riff that's going through progressively changing keys. It gave me such systematic chaos vibes from all like the instrumental bits of the songs on that record from 2006 with Dream Theater. And that's, of course, anyone who knows me knows that that's my favorite of them ever, for many reasons. But it's a perfect sampling platter of here's like everything that they've done, not just in their Dream Theater days, but with LTE, I think. And it was great. It's fantastic.
It was really cool. And like you said, I'll repeat what you said. Yes, it's if you need to show somebody what the instrumental side of Dream Theater sounds like,
it's this.
Because it didn't really sound much different than what they sound like now. Basically, because it's without vocals and a different bass player. But I honestly didn't really hear much of a difference with the different bass player.
No, it still sounded very, very Dream Theater.
Yeah, and that's Petrucci and Portnoy right there, and Rudess. I mean, you got those 3 together, it's going to sound like Dream Theater, unless they're going to actively try not to sound like Dream Theater.
Right. If they're going to try to purposefully deviate, then yeah. But here, I think they're just like, all right, this pandemic sucks. Let's get together and do a nice little reunion and make some really killer content. That's just like what we did in the old days. And I'm very happy with that. I did not, when I saw that they announced the new album was coming, I was floored because it was, how long has it been since LTE 2? Years, right? Yeah, like it's been a minute, right? It didn't just come out a couple of years ago. It's been a while. So,
and their first one came out in '97. So,
and I think the second one was not long after that. You know what? I'll just look it up quick.
The riffing was very, very Dream Theater like. Like when Dream Theater gets heavy, that's the kind of riffs that they do, and especially that beginning. The beginning was strictly heavy Dream Theater vibe right there. Like when they get to their heaviest, that's what it sounds like. So if someone, like you said, if someone wants to know what Dream Theater sounds like without vocals, Liquid Tension Experiment, this song, The Passage of Time, excellent though. It is fabulous. I'll agree with one of our posts on the Rock Talk with DocRocker Facebook group. Lisa Welsh Connect says it's fabulous, and I agree 100% with her.
Yes, so do I. And like I said, I know I sound like a broken record, but I was expecting it. I was expecting something very much like this that I knew I would like, that would be really
Yeah,
colorful and goofy, and they're all those cool little meter fills that are different. Like let's add an extra beat this time and then not do it the second time, like all like the typical elements of creating really great instrumental prog music. It
yeah. I noticed
definitely.
that one part of the song where they were going in between the two time signatures, which was really neat. I'll have to listen to it again,
Mhm.
uh, really take it in. But I was like, just listening to it, and I'm listening to it through a cell phone basically. So I'm not hearing all the tiny little things that are going on. So when I do listen to it again, I'm sure I'm going to hear even more
Mhm.
really neat proggy things.
Yeah, lots of layers to it, and
Yeah,
that's not even to mention all the Chapman stick that we got to see,
yeah.
which was really cool.
that
Really,
is
really interesting, different sound. That
that instrument just like freaks me out. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, me too. It's wicked cool. Very, very cool. I'm looking forward. Do we know? Yeah, when does the album drop? Let's see.
I don't
Probably.
know. Sure, it's
Let's
gonna
see.
drop soon.
Legendary supergroup comprised of blah blah blah. Return with a new album due to be released March 26th, 2021 via Inside
March,
Out Music.
not
Um,
too long from now.
22 years after the band's last studio album. Yeah, I looked it up. LTE2
Wow.
came out in 2009. So, let's see. We're so excited last summer to be back in a room creating stuff together again. 22 years, all four of us, over 10 years for the three of us since being together in Dream Theater. Oh my God, it really has been 10 years since Portnoy left Dream Theater. It still feels like he just left and they just got Mike Mangini. Um, Yes, there's a little interview on that YouTube link. There's little interview bits with each of the four musicians in the description. So I'll quote a couple of these quick to share them. Um, let's see. Once again, how amazing it was going to be to work together. We knew we were onto something, and this is going to be a really amazing album. Nothing about the passage over 2 decades could have done anything to change that. To me, this song truly reflects the collaborative songwriting efforts for all four of us. That's Petrucci. Jordan Rudess says there is an undeniable chemistry that happens when the four of us get together. Entering the studio and starting work on Passage of Time after 22 years literally gave me a whole new perspective on these important musical and personal relationships and the way time is so relative. We just jumped right in. It was like no time had passed at all. We created a song that had so many of the elements that made us unique in the past. Not a day has gone by since our last release when I wasn't asked, when is Liquid Tension Experiment getting back together again? Now we can finally deliver, and I can't wait for everyone to hear what we created. And Tony Levins is the shortest. From the murky depths of the lockdown, we have reemerged, galvanized, dripping with ideas, and taking no prisoners. The passage of time is just the beginning. So definitely whetting my appetite for what's to come in March. I'm beyond excited, and we'll definitely when it comes out, maybe we do another thing like this. We do a series of reacts to like let's listen to each song and check them out and
Yeah.
see what we think of them.
Now, one thing that this has me thinking about, and fingers crossed for it, is that Petrucci and Portnoy and Rudess got in the same room and they just hashed everything out. I like Mike Mangini, but I'd rather have Portnoy back in the band in Dream Theater. So fingers crossed for that. Mike can find.
To be honest, I would definitely have wanted that a few years ago if you asked me, but the last two albums that they put out with Mangini, I actually really, really like, because I was just like every other fan who was like super salty about the whole thing and was like, they're not the same without Portnoy. But I really liked, oh God, I'm blanking on Dramatic Turn of Events, the album that first featured Mangini right after Portnoy left, and it was really solid. But for me, there was a little bit of that just salt on my tongue and in my ears about it's not Portnoy, it's not the same. But it was
Yeah,
still
but you
really
know what?
good.
It is though. It is to me. It was. Mangini was the best replacement, I think, for Portnoy. Any of those
Absolutely.
guys really that I saw that audition could have replaced him. But when you,
Yeah, I think they made the right choice.
when it goes to that, when you get to that level, though, I mean, like anything Mike Portnoy was able to do, Mangini can do. It just, but to me, Portnoy was Dream Theater. It's just like I'd rather.
I would agree 100%. Portnoy was always my favorite part of that band. Nothing against any of the others because they're all the best. They're the cream of the crop. Petrucci is one of my favorite guitar players. Jordan Rudess is one of my favorite keyboard players. James Labrie is one of my favorite singers. I love his voice. I don't have a problem with him at all. I know a lot of fans do.
Talk about that forever too.
Yeah, that'll be a whole other episode of Rock Talk for sure. But yeah, but like for me, what really was the nail in the coffin was the album The Astonishing that came out, I want to say like 2015, a couple years later, and that was mostly Petrucci behind that album. I really didn't care for it that much, and at that point I was like, I'm not going to bother with any of the new stuff. And then sure enough, one day, really recently, I kind of came around. I was like, they put out a bunch of stuff since Portnoy left. I should maybe check it out. Cause I mean, it's still Dream Theater. So,
Yeah.
and sure enough, I was pleasantly surprised and super impressed with a lot of the new content. The self-title is really great. I think that the newest one, I think it's called Distance Over Time. Correct me if I'm wrong. That just dropped, I think last February or the year before that. It's like pretty new, and it is amazing. It's awesome stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I should give these guys a fair shot. And I actually, now I'm kind of thinking it might be best if, kind of Portnoy stays out of it, because they have a really good thing going. And with this Liquid Tension experiment being a possible way that they can sort of quasi reunite, plus, not to mention Portnoy now has that other super group, Sons of Apollo, that I really have gotten super into over the past 2 years.
They're very good.
They're really good. And their 2020 album from January of last year, I still go back to that really frequently and listen to it.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that one's great.
Yeah, I kind of want Portnoy just to have Sons of Apollo and let Dream Theater go on without him, because then we get Dream Theater, which is fantastic. We get Sons of Apollo, which is equally fantastic in its own different way. And then we get this Liquid Tension experiment. We have this nice, like, holy trinity of progressive music gods. And just keep it coming, man. I will consume all this stuff till the day I die. I love it. So
okay, so first impression of the new Liquid Tension experiment song, I say thumbs up. I'll listen to it again. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I say thumbs up. It's the perfect embodiment of everything that a fan of progressive metal will like about Dream Theater, Liquid Tension experiment, with or without Mike Portnoy. It perfectly encapsulates all of the, like I said before, all of the dimensions of each of those four musicians, at the height of their virtuosity, at the height of their tasteful playing, at the height of their melodic composition, at the height of their overall song composition, having certain themes that were perfectly sprinkled throughout. And there was enough variety, there was enough contrast that, I didn't feel like they ever sat on one idea for too long. I felt like it had a really nice pace. And for a progressive song, that was actually on the short side. It was 7.5 minutes? It's like a perfect, just nice, neat little, just put a bow on it and ship it out. And the whole album could be just 10 more of those. And I'll buy 100 copies in a heartbeat. So I'm very much looking forward to what the rest of the album has in store. And those of you that watched our reacts, hopefully you enjoyed and maybe learned something about these guys from us. And hopefully you're inspired to go check out more of their content. Go listen to the other Liquid Tension experiment albums. Go listen to more Dream Theater. Anyone who gets super turned on to Dream Theater, that makes me happy, because they're one of my favorite bands through thick and thin. So
there you go. And remember, subscribe to us and check out our Rock Talk with DocRocker group on Facebook.
And also like and subscribe to Inside Out Music for sharing that video. So hopefully you get more updates on what's going on with Liquid Tension and all their other bands.